this castle was built by the Portuguese in 1482. There is another castle in Accra, the capital city. We call it Osu Castle or Christiansborg Castle. Those from Denmark built it in 1661. And also we have another one in Cape Coast. From here to Cape Coast is like about 20 minutes along the coast of this country. Then they built 3 of these ones. So Ghana was like a hub. So this is the aerial view of Elmina. And when we get to the top of this one, you will see all these things. There's a lagoon under the bridge. It joins the sea this way. The name is Benya Lagoon. And the people here, the main occupation is fishing, especially the men. And apart from fishing, some of them mine salt. So this is where the salt is mined. Got this side? Yeah, this side. There are lots behind the mountain. And also when you were entering the castle, I don't know whether you saw this diagram, the square diagram. It is right in front of the castle. It's a compass, navigational compass for direction. So in the compass, you will see that we have 4 cardinal points: north, south, east, and west for direction. At the same time, it serves as a sundial. They put a stick at the center of the compass and they use the shadow to tell the time. Now, this moat will also be filled with water. So you walked on this one before you entered the castle. They fill this moat with water and there's a drawbridge here. They can easily lift it up to close the entrance. So no one will get a chance to enter the castle for security reasons. And at the back of the castle, you see this one. This is where the big ships anchored because the sea was very close. Today it has receded. There is a door here we call the door of no return. The door of no return. So small canoes took the slaves right from this side to the big ships off to America or Caribbean for plantations. Now, according to the history, the Portuguese were the Europeans who came to this place first. They came here 1471, and they were here to trade and also to spread Christianity. And when the Portuguese were coming, they brought guns, gunpowder, tobacco, alcoholic beverages, even mirror in exchange of gold from the local people. Though they were here for gold, ivory, spices, and many more, but they were getting a lot of gold at that time. Therefore, they were interested in gold trade more than any other commodity. That is why the Portuguese named this place Elmina, because of gold they were getting in abundance. They had an impression that this place was in abundance of gold. That's why they named the place Elmina. But originally, you see, the original name here used to be Anomansa. Anomansa is the name before the coming of the Portuguese. Anomansa in English is inexhaustible water, or water that does not get finished. You can also call this place Edina, either Elmina or Edina accepted. Edina, according to the history, it's wrongly pronounced Portuguese word. Because when the Portuguese came, they saw this place to be a village. But in their language, they pronounce village out there. So out there in Portuguese means village. And it is believed that the locals at that time could not pronounce the name well. And it was corrupted to Edina. So both Elmina and Edina we are using currently are not the original names. And Anomansa used to be the name. So when the Portuguese came, initially, this castle wasn't built. Therefore, they were sleeping in their big ships on the sea. But they were unattended here. And as time went on, the trade was booming, it was expanding. So they needed places to sleep and also to store their goods. And the leader of the Portuguese went to see a chief because when they came, there was a chief around. The name of the chief is Nana Pamana Ansa. That's the chief that they met. And then the one who led the Portuguese here, the name of the leader is Don Diego de Azambuja. And even history has it that they went to the chief several times for this piece of land to be given. But initially, the chief was reluctant to give out the land, citing future cultural differences. But upon persuasions and assurances, the land was later given. Then they built this castle 1482. When they built it, they were using all the rooms on the ground floor around as storerooms. or warehouses. But when slave trade started, the same rooms were converted into dungeons where human beings were held. Slave trade started in 1500 or in the early part of 16th century, and that began what is known as transatlantic slave trade. So the Portuguese, they spent 155 years here. They used 100 years to trade in goods, 55 years for human trade.
Triumphantly, won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? 'Cause all I ever...
And all the rooms that you see here were dungeons for the female slaves. The female slaves were about 400, and then the male slaves were about 600. So at one time, this castle held approximately 1,000 slaves at the time. Now look, when you look over there, there is a cannonball here. I don't know, when you stand there, unless you stand there, this ball. The balls were 8. There were 8 of such balls here with chains connected. That's why there was a hole on top of it. When the Europeans came, only the men came here without their wives. So some of them were raping the women. There were soldiers here, missionaries, merchants, governor, and even the governor's assistants. So those who tried to escape, those who were fighting the masters to be released, were brought here. So the person will be chained to the balls. Very heavy, so you can't move with it. And you have to stand here, whether there is rain or sunshine. That period, no food, no water. When they see that, you are very, very weak, and then you will be released. They did that just to put fear in the rest of the women in the dungeon. So anytime you are called to do something, quickly you have to obey. So that is the purpose of this one. Let's continue. Now, these are wooden bars. At that time, they were using these ones. Iron bars. So there is no way a slave can escape. But because the castle is very close to the sea, the original ones are getting rusty. So all the bars have been replaced with wood. So wherever you see wooden bars like this, they were using these ones. And also the clothes that you see on the floor. You see, there was a program here. It was held on 3rd July 2015. The title for the program is The Return of the Slaves. So many people came here, some from the States, some from UK, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Togo, so many places. They slept in this dungeon for one night, just to have a feel of how the slaves felt when they were in the dungeons. I was around, some of us left very late. The next day when we came, security told us that after the program, some of them fell sick and they were rushed to the hospital. So you can picture how hard it was when a real thing was going on here with the dungeons. So this is what they used to cover themselves. Now, upon all these things that they were doing, some of them were Christians. So in this castle, we have 2 churches. Where I gave the introduction, the museum, that is the first Christian church they built in West Africa. It's a Catholic church, but the Portuguese were Catholics. When Dutch took over, Dutch were not Catholics, they were Protestants. So they didn't see the Portuguese church as their own. Rather, they built their own church, ironically, on top of this dungeon. So they were busily worshiping Almighty God as human beings were down, crying for help. Any question? So you can have a look. Water reservoir. They connected pipes. They connected pipes like this one, right on top of the building. So whenever it rains, it passes through. The water was filtered over there and clean one will be harvested here. This covers the whole floor, the entire floor. We are all standing on it. And when it is full, we have 20,000 gallons of water for domestic use. Now look, there's a balcony. According to the history, the governor will stand here. Anytime he wants to rape one of the women, this is where he will stand. And some of the women will be assembled as we are, and the governor will choose the one he likes. They have to fetch water for the one chosen by the governor to wash down. Maybe the person might have been in the dungeon for so long without taking her bath. And after the humiliation, they will force her to climb this one.
Okay.
So the selected woman will be forced to climb this. There's a trap door on top, they have to open it, up the door to the governor's bedroom. And after the rape, the woman still comes back as a slave. And because of what happened, they said a lot of them got pregnant. And those who were found pregnant were freed, because no one will buy a pregnant slave. But you see, the slaves were not from Ghana alone. Some from Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Togo, Mali, Burkina Faso. Ghana was like a hub. That's why they built 3 castles, and the 4th that they built were more than 40. Apart from Ghana, there's a castle in Senegal. We call it Goree Island. Even when you go to Mombasa in Kenya, there's a fort there called Fort Jesus. Nigeria, we have Badagry slave market. The same Nigeria, we have Calabar slave market. Ghana, apart from the fort and the castles, there are a lot of slave markets here. When you go to the north, we have Salaga slave market, Paga slave camp, Pinkolo slave, we have a lot. So they were just bringing them here. So those who were found pregnant, and when they were freed, some of them could not trace their origin because they were from long distances. Now when they gave birth, the children were light-skinned, so they saw the children to be their own children. Later they built houses outside the castle for the pregnant women. They brought the children here. Those children were educated. They were not slaves. That is why today in Ghana, it is common to hear names like Vanderbilt. We have Van Dyke, Viella, Da Costa, De Gea, Vroom, Battles, Smith, McCarthy, Johnson, Blankson, Dustin, Duncan, and the rest of the names. Any question?
Get up, stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up, don't give up the fight. Get up.
Among the dungeons for the female slaves, this is the largest one. All the dungeons say this one is the largest. And because this one is the largest, 150 women were here. 150 female slaves. There was a door at the side closed, another door over there. Ventilation was from this one, and then the small one that you see at the end, provided the slaves light and air. And look, this is the original floor. Human beings were sleeping on the bed floor.
Just like this.
Yes, and in this castle, there were no toilet facilities for the slaves. Because initially when they built it, they started trading in goods. So they were using all the rooms on the ground floor as storerooms. When they shifted slavery, the same rooms were converted into dungeons. So they have to put containers in the dungeons for the slaves to eat themselves. So you can imagine those who were sick, who were very weak and could not get closer to the containers, will have to ease themselves. They were women, they had their menses, they were in the same condition. And then they stayed in the dungeons for 3 months to wait for the ships. There were no machines, so you can imagine from America to this place, Caribbean. That is why a lot of them died, conditions in the dungeons. And according to the history